Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Thank you. I'm Councilwoman Shirley Lanier, and I'm here because I'm a resident first. I had questions about the water. I had questions about, everything as it relates to the water. So when you have city council meetings and you have utility district meetings, there's not enough time to get your questions out, enough time for people to explain not complicated but complex information about the water and how it works. The first part of our presentation is the people who actually work at the water plant. Um, I invited them here because they are the lifeblood of the utilities department. They do the work to make sure that our water is clean and safe. So what we want to do is we're going to start out with those individuals first. We're going to talk about the water plant, and then we're going to talk about the questions about the E. coli and whatever else there is that we can answer. So we're going to get started with our first presentation, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that you understand the ins and outs. And it's not trying to be complicated, but a lot of things go into making sure that the water is clean for the city. And we want to recognize those individuals who make sure that that happens for us. So we'll have Ms. Jacobs come up. She's our assistant city manager, and she'll introduce the presentation that we're going to have, and then it'll be brief, but then we'll get into questions and answers and that kind of thing.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming out. Ms. Lanier, thank you for the opportunity for us to present to the community. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Deirdre Jacobs. I'm the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach, and the Utility Special District is one of the departments that I oversee. We have a complement of persons that are here tonight that are responsible for various disciplines within the Utility Special District. Closest to me is Larry Brown. Mr. Brown is responsible for distribution. Melvin Pinckney is our water plant manager. Margie D. Berry is our compliance officer. Mike Miller is here with us from U.S. Water, which is one of our consultants. And of course, Emilio Brown is here. He's in charge of collections. So with that said, a couple of weeks ago, we put together a PowerPoint presentation at the Citizens Leadership Program. We're going to duplicate that here now to some extent, and I believe afterwards, after we do the PowerPoint, we'll go into any questions that you might have, and we will respond to those accordingly. So. So we're going to first start with Mr. Pinckney. Mr. Pinckney is our, as I mentioned earlier, he's the manager of our water plant, and we'll start with his slides. As we go through the slides, if you have any interest in asking any questions, if you would just please hold those until the very end, but we do want you to ask questions, and we want to be in a position to answer those questions so that when you leave here, you'll have a thorough understanding of our operations and how we work really hard to make sure that our water product is safe for your consumption. Mr. Pinckney, do you want to start?
Yes, you gonna roll it? Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Melvin Pinckney. I'm the water treatment plant manager. I've been with the city of Riviera Beach going on about 8 years. I have a certification in water treatment, A-level water treatment. This is one of our raw water wells, a superficial well where we picking up where we pulling our raw water from. It comes in the plant. It comes to a stripper. Next one, Ms. Jacobs, please.
Let me stop right now.
Yes.
Let me say this. I think that people have to understand that the city has wells. They don't have what they call water catchment areas. The city of West Palm Beach at Lake Magnolia is where they take their water from. And they treat that water, but the city of Riviera Beach has wells that they pull their water from. So it's a different process. Just want to put that in there.
Yes, it's West Palm is surface water. We're groundwater. So this takes off VOD, the organic compounds, and hydrogen sulfides. This is about the next step in the process. Lime softening been around a long time. Next slide, Ms. Jacobs.
If we could, Mr. Pinckney, I also want us to use this as an educational opportunity. Could you talk about how old our plant is,
Okay,
the amount of
yes.
water?
Our water plant is 1958. A lot of old equipment there. We're working with it. Just was speaking to one of the gentlemen. I was telling him I'm working with what I have. You know, we have to utilize what we have in the front of us. I think this system right here was put in 1988 on the placard on this. Something had happened and they put in a stripping tower. It's a lot of old equipment. The plants, you got to realize that if the plant was built in 1958, the wells had to be before the plant. So, other words, the wells was built in the earlier 50s, late 40s. So the wells been around a long time. Next slide.
You want to talk about the amount of water that we produce and how much our plant is capable?
We're
of
able to
producing?
do, we're designed to do 17 MGD. That's million gallons per day. Sorry about that. Right now we're averaging somewhere around about 8.5 to 9.5 MGD. That's million gallons per day. Someone monitoring that all the time, and it changes with the season. Like we was kind of like into a drought, and we was really having some difficult times because some of these wells are really old and need rehabbing. So we working on that process as well. But it's an art to it. It's a lot into it. And when you're doing lime softening, it's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of things that have to work. Yes, thank you. Yeah, go the other way, Ms. Jacobs. Yes. Thank you. Right. That is one of the softening basins. That stripper tower, what it does, now the water come over to the clarifier, to the softener. Once that water go into that unit, it's being introduced to ammonia and chlorine. It's a step in the process of treatment. It's going to a clarifier, sedimentation basin, we like to call them as well. We have different terminology for these units. But what happened is they separate the suspended solids from the water, because what happens, you get a lot of solids in there. We add chemicals so everything will come together and settle out into what we call sludge. And and what happens if you're not good on that art and keep that real good and keep it moving really good in that treatment, things could happen. It's really an art to keeping it intact. If you look at one of these posters up here, you could see a brownish blanket. And what happens if something happens, that blanket try to come out into the filter. Because the next step, the last step is the filters. So we try to make sure that if you look at one of these posters right here, you can see the blanket in there. That's the art of keeping that blanket intact. That's just sedimentation, flocculation, keeping the particles intact. Otherwise, they'll come out into the system, and they'll try to get to the clear well, which go out in distribution. So we have to be very careful and pay close attention to the treatment. Lime softening likes consistently. It likes to be consistent. It likes to be consistent. But things happen. If a well shut off, we got to catch it right away and adjust the chemicals. If we lose a well, if we add a well, we got to, add more chemicals. So it's really an art to it, and the operators have to really pay attention. Next. This is one of our storage tanks. These tanks are used for. This one especially is used to help backwash our filters. We use it for demand time because certain periods and times of the day, an hour, 3 a.m. in the morning, irrigation comes on. The pressure you want to drop in the system, we go to pulling water from these tanks. We have one on North Singer Island. We have one on Avenue C over here right behind me, and we have one on Avenue U. These tanks are mainly used for demand. When the demand is off, what I mean by demand, when everyone come home, when the sun is shining, everybody using water, we use these tanks. We pump out the water for them. And then when they back off, like 10, 11 o'clock at night, we fill the tanks. So it's an ongoing process. You have windows of opportunities. So we have to fill these tanks when that window opens. And we have to have the right amount of wells to be able to fill these tanks. I think that's it for me, Ms. J. Okay. Anyone?
Well, we were going to hold them, but
okay.
if it's your preference.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. You can go ahead.
So my question is, I know that the line softening system does not take care of the color of the water, because it's an antiquated system, and the new system that we have will do that, including taking care of PFAS and everything else, would be great.
Yes.
But can you help me explain to people when they ask why is the water yellow? Is that just Revere Beach, or is that endemic to all of South Florida? What does that come from, and is it dangerous?
That comes from a certain amount of lime that we could put in the water to lower the pH, to increase the pH, I should say. The higher we can raise, it's a chemical reaction. The more calcium hydroxide we put in the water, the higher we can raise the pH, and the lower the color can be. But until we get some other opponents working to do this, we really can't just do that with lime softening. But that is on the way, hopefully shortly here. And I think Mr. Miller is going to talk a little bit about that.
But the color itself comes from vegetation deep underground.
Yes, ma'am.
You can't do anything about that, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, and that color is generally a South Florida issue, unless you have a more state-of-the-art plant, which takes care of it.
Exactly.
It's not Revere Beach.
Exactly.
It's just that part of living in South Florida, and you could drink it, and there's nothing wrong with it, right?
Yeah, if I may add to that, I'm John Armstrong, engineer with the utility district. Is this working? Can you hear me? All right, sorry about that. John Armstrong, utility district engineer. One of the predominant sources of the color is naturally occurring in the groundwater, and it's from tannins, organic material. So if you have something like, you heard black water, muddy water, like muddy water, it's not really muddy, but it's the color from the vegetation that decays, just like tea leaves when you make tea. So, and we have two well fields. The older well field near the eastern side of the city. A lot of it's like from Avenue H West, but the soils are sandy, so that there's not as much organics. So when the plant initially started, it didn't really have that much of a problem with color because it didn't have the organics. Now, as the city grew and the district expanded out into unincorporated Palm Beach County, the western well field has more organics in the groundwater. So it has a lot more tannins. The color from those wells, the yellow, has increased the color of the plant. So that is the predominant source of the color. There's two things for color. There's a true color and apparent color. And true color is there's a secondary drinking water standards we have primary and secondary drinking water standards. So it's not like a health issue like bacteria and such, but it's a secondary standard. It's more like aesthetics. There's another secondary standard is odor. So some utilities with groundwater have a lot of sulfur from the groundwater that has some smell. But we have air strippers that remove that type of odor. And so the True Color, there's a secondary drinking water standard that we have to meet, and to my understanding, we're barely meeting that, but we're meeting it. And then there's what they call an apparent color, which is sort of relates to what Mr. Pinckney was talking about, is if you add lime and some of the solids may pass through the filters, and like if you, for example, you make cocoa and you put the cocoa in and you mix it or something, and some of it's still not dissolved. So the True Color is the dissolved portion, but if you have some suspended material in there, it's going to affect the color, what you see. And that's not, they call that apparent color. It's not, I call it True Color, but it's what I see. But so it's the two components. The source of the water is the tannins and the organics in the water, makes the water yellow, and the suspended material from the lime, you add some lime, it adds a little color, and so that adds to it. And so, like you said, the new plant, the membrane plant would remove all the color.
So just to be clear, the fact that your water is yellow, because I drink Riviera Beach water, and my water is tasted yellow, and I've always drank it because I'm told by some scientists that there is nothing unhealthy in the fact that it's yellow.
You are correct. And it is around in other areas. I remember 50 years ago, I used to live up in New Jersey. I came down to visit my grandparents in Fort Lauderdale, and I flushed the toilet, and I'm thinking, I forgot to flush the toilet. I mean, it was then a lot more yellower than our water is.
Yeah, I just have one more slide. That is Avenue U. That is a 1 million gallon storage tank. And as I was thinking earlier, it's a repump station that holds 1 million gallons. It's also for fire protection in case we have a serious main break or something like that, or something happen in the system that we can actually boost up the system, because we must keep at least 20 psi on the system at all times, but we do have breaks. We do have breaks in the system, and when the system breaks, about a year ago I had a break on Australia, Mr. Brown, and it took out a whole lot of stuff, and we almost pumped the plant dry, but that tank there saved us, kept us from going under. Good thing we had that tank full of water.
So, Mr. Pickney, could you explain what PSI means, or if it goes to
Pounds per square inch. Pounds per square inch. It's pressure on the system. We must keep water pressure on the system at all time.
what happens if we don't?
Things can happen in the system if you don't keep that pressure. What happens? Things will try to back up in the system. So we like to keep that. We must state regulated that we keep 20 psi on that system at all times. At our plant, we run around 65, 70 psi at the plant at all times. And these tanks are for demands. For a few years back, we had a fire over here at the port or something. A boat caught a fire or something. And Avenue C, we kicked it on, and it helped us out, the fire department. You really got to be on your game. You got to stay up on it. It's, we 24/7. The last slide is about the SCADA system. The SCADA system, someone's there 24 hours a day. They did some articles a long time ago about us working on Christmas holidays, and, nothing against the PD or nothing like that, or the fire, but, we there too. We there. We there. We have to be there. We have to try to maintain the system at all times. Someone's watching this system at all times. Someone watching the chlorine in the system at all times, trying to keep up with everything that's going on. But this is a supervisor control and data acquisition system. What it does, it let us act in real time. We can turn on tanks miles away. We can turn on things miles away from this system. It works really good for us. We're going to upgrade it, but it works.
So is our control room where our water treatment plant operators are situated?
Mm-hmm. They there all the time, pretty much. Thank you. Thank you. So
Mr. Brown is our next presenter. Mr. Brown is over water distribution.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Larry Brown, as Ms. Jacobs stated. Just to give you a little background on me. I've been in the industry about 40 years, a little bit over. I have a license, state license at FDEP, a Class B in wastewater, a level 3 in customer service, and a backflow technician repair and testing. Next slide. As you see, our main focus at the city is maintaining fire hydrants. They are so old, when somebody hits one or one's not functioning correctly, we replace them with a new one, just for an upgrade. And also we do maintenance and repair and maintain. As you see to the left, where you see the water main has been hit by somebody doing ground drilling. First, the thing is we want to be safe, because since it's around a light pole, you don't see any staff members around it. We got to make sure we call no cuts, FP&L, and make sure the whole line is clear until we can get the water off, because if it's not, it's a wire on the ground, we always get electrocuted. So safety is always first with us when we do anything. And you can see right here, when we make the repair, the water main is an asbestos, what we call asbestos water main. It's probably been in the ground since the water plant was here. So we constantly have doing repair with them every day, all the time. And so if the water go down below 20 PSI, we have to issue boil water notices from our compliance officers. Next slide. Oh, that was it for me. I had a lot to talk about.
All right.
You good.
Who's,
Previous slideshow, and what happened was we condensed it for tonight.
Oh, man.
yeah, well, we condensed it because we wanted to get more questions than, we just wanted to let you know what the water plant was actually doing, what the water plant actually consists of, but we want to get into questions as well. And we want to have time for that.
So this relates to distribution. So the new water treatment plant, will there be a lot of work done on the distribution system as well, and on the pipes to get the water to us? I mean, how much of that has to be remade? Or are we relying on existing and just fixing up what we got?
No, not necessarily. That should be coming from the engineer as far as your long-term plans.
Apologize. Can you repeat the question, Dr. Patel?
So the question was, will we be in charge of the underground infrastructure, along with the new water treatment plant itself? Will the lines, the pipes also be replaced or upgraded?
Well, there will be some pipes, new pipes associated with the water treatment plant project. Basically the pipes that leave the water plant, they're the largest pipes, and as you go out further out in the system, they get smaller. So with the new relocated plant at Avenue L, which is pretty close, so we'll have to run some piping between the old plant and the new plant to account for that. And other than that, there will be some raw water mains for the new wells that provide the water to the plant, but other than that, the water treatment plant project doesn't include replacing the water distribution system.
Are they in good enough shape that we don't have to worry about them? Are they acceptable in terms of
Well, some of a majority of the pipes were put in the late 1950s when the new plant was put in, and so they're getting, in 10 years, getting close to their useful life. So we're going to need to um, start replacing the pipes. We we just had a consultant review that, and we have a meeting. They just submitted their plan to incorporate that with. So we have a meeting with Public Works Department. So what we'd like to do on replacing those is to be consistent with the Public Works handles the roadways. So we don't want to be replacing a pipe, disrupting a neighborhood to replace the pipe, and then go back and then do the road. So you get all the that's one aspect. And two, we want to do some of these together so that it's more efficient on the cost. So if you want to put a pipe in and tear up the road, it's the same time to do it when we're upgrading and milling, resurfacing roads and fixing potholes and stuff like that.
In the meeting last week, they were discussing that Jonathan was saying that he prefer if the old wells would be repaired for right now until the new ones are built. And I think that's the most, if it's going to affect us right now, I think that should be the logical thing to do. We'll take the heat for the money, but if it's going to be that we fix those wells connected to the old plant now, so we can stop having all of these water issues and all of these complaints about the water, I think that's a logical thing to do. And another thing, I wanted to bring to the residents, they always talk about their water is brown, but some of I don't know what year it was, but the houses were built back in the 40s, and your pipes are iron pipes. So your pipes are going to need to be changed to PVC pipes in your yard. So that probably will cut down with the lead and all the chemicals coming through brown and with little whatever it smells or whatever. You need to replace your pipes if your house was like built in the 40s. Am I correct?
Right.
You're correct.
Yes, ma'am. And one thing on the wells, we did complete the rehabilitation of 2 wells just recently, but we have to do bacteriological testing, which we initiated earlier this week. And so over the next 10 days, if you see a well with water flushing out from around it, that's what that is. And then after we get a sufficient number of successful bacteriological tests, then we send that off to the health department and ask for their approval to place it back into service. We have 8 wells that are out of service, so that is a fast track project. And then the piping, if people have certain old pipe like iron or it may corrode, a lot of times it gets smaller, tuberculated is a term, it gets smaller and you may lose pressure but it's not related to the lead. If you have a lead pipe or lead solder, then they would need to be replaced. And we're also investigating that. We've have a consultant looking at records on where, if there's any lead in the city, and then also based on that, there is a compliance day. We did submit a lead inventory to the Florida Department of Health on October 16th, and at that point we haven't found any lead, and we're doing investigations. So if you see someone coming out in the yard and they want to check around the water meter, they're checking on the utility side to see what the pipe is, and on the customer side. So sorry for that inconvenience, but we're looking for lead. We haven't found any yet.
All right. Yes. Okay. In the back right here, Ms. Pope. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you guys back here. The mayor and our chair is here, Mr. Lawson, and the mayor.
Yes, you stated that when you have a break in the water pipes, that you notify FP&L so there wouldn't be any electrocution or anything.
Yes, ma'am.
What about sewer? And now we're getting, what my homes have, now the gas lines are now underground. So when you have these breaks now, you have to, and also cable is now underground. So you're going to be notifying all of these different industries,
Yes, ma'am.
whether sewer or water.
Both.
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 Very good.
Yes. When we excavate any area, we always call what they call 811 Sunshine, and they will come out and locate every line for us before we do any excavation.
I had one more question here before we go to our next section.
So I just want to get clarity. The scare or the fear mongering of our water is damaged, our water is spoiled, it's not necessarily the responsibility of the city. It could be the age of the home and the pipes. That's where probably the discoloration is coming, probably where, I'm not saying that there could not be a contamination, but the age of the house could be a factor when the water is tainted or discolored or yellow. Is that what you all are saying?
If you have a galvanized line and the house is really old, it could be bad. It need be replaced.
What,
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Right.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our next section right quick because I'm gonna get to you, Miss Paul. Miss Brown. Just give me 1 second. Let them. Who's the next person?
right here.
William?
Yeah, let him do his, and it's only about 2 or 3 slides, and then we'll get back to the questions.
All right.
Emilio?
Good night. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emilio Brown, wastewater superintendent and lead electrician. Pretty much just a little bit, kind of educate you on the collections. So throughout every neighborhood, there's a lateral to everyone's house. From that lateral, it goes to our gravity sewer line. From that gravity sewer line, it goes to a lift station. The lift station is pretty much a large underground silo that collects all your sewer until it gets to a certain point. Once it gets to that certain point where the floats turn on and turn those pumps on, it kicks it over to a master station. From that master station, it gets pumped over to ECR, and that's this final step pretty much. So here's a lift station here. Pretty much a lift station is based of an electrical panel. You have a submersible pump. You usually have 2 at a station. The higher pipe that comes into the side, that's your gravity from the neighborhood, and then the one that's connected to the motor, that is your force main getting pumped out. So some of the issues that we run into on a weekly basis is either like a lot of toilet paper getting clogged up into our pumps. We run into multiple issues. Either it's a contractor that's doing underground drilling, hitting our lines. Just recently, we had to fix a couple of those. And what else is going on is just like everywhere else, the pipes are a little older. These are the original pipes, and sewer creates gases. So the gases start to eat at the metal. Once we dig it up, it looked like a soda can at that point, when it's supposed to be at least an inch thick or a little bit smaller. Next. Oh, so those right there that's not really toilet paper, so it is flushable wipes. Flushable wipes really isn't flushable. It doesn't break up like toilet paper. They can ball up, they get into one section, and they'll sit at the bottom of the pump, and as it sucks, it'll get caught up into our pumps. So that's our major issue right now. Like, a lot of our pumps, they'll damage our pumps, overheat them, and clog up the system.
Flushable wipes.
Yeah, flushable wipes.
Flushable wipes.
Yeah. The other part is electrical. So electricians, we handle pretty much all the SCADA. We get the alarms. We go out to the station. So SCADA is pretty much a radio system. It detects if there's a problem at the station. It sends it over to the control room, and the operators notice that there's an alarm. Then they give one of us a call. We go out to the stations and we get the problem fixed.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Questions for our collections? Oh.
Right now, we did have a break. I think it was probably 2 months ago. We did get it repaired, but we are looking into either adding a second line from Singer Island to bring it over to the island, or just completely start from scratch and start rebuilding it slowly. So that's
Yes, ma'am. That force main from Lift Station 10 that serves the island and the town of Palm Beach Shores all the way to Lift Station 1A over by Avenue H. It's about 5 miles. That is being designed right now. Actually, the design has been initiated just recently, so it's in a distant future, unfortunately. Yes, ma'am. I apologize. We've had
First
a
of
lot of
all-
difficulty
First of
obtaining
all,
easements.
good
so-
evening. And I just would like to say, it is a lift station right between 8th Street and S Avenue. I made mention about this about 3 months ago. And it was about 6 or 7. I was looking at, all of that stuff there because that lift station there right across from Azuri Estates. And it's located on it's called S and U Avenue because 8th Street and S Avenue, it runs through Harmony Heights there. And I think you all know that. It was about 6 or 7 workers there. And I got out and I had a conversation with them. So I want to say that I thank you all, the ones that are working diligently. And this crew here was working diligently. And it was a lot of stuff there. It was a lot of stuff that was there. And therefore, I understand that. I would also like to say, I know down in West Palm Beach, because I received some from there, they have these little tablets. I don't know, these little tabs, what you put into your tank, and it will let you know. They're down in West Palm Beach. And I wanted to run that by this city here. I think you're someone shaking their head, so you know what I'm talking about. You can put them in your tank bowl, and they will give you some, whether or not some coloration. I don't know the yes, they are. And those are very, very good. Very, very good. So I wanted to suggest that for this city here too, that we can do that, bring on board something like that so that the residents can have that testing too, because I find that very, very helpful, and it will also help a lot of the residents. I also would like to say, we know that this city was established back in the 1960s, and everybody cannot remove their pipes, like Ms. Bram or somebody else have did some work on their homes. What we are saying here, and I've connected with the business as well as various residents as well as community outlets. We don't want to hear anymore about this matter here, about contamination. We know that exists. What we are saying is we want to get beyond that. We want to get beyond all of that now, because it's not what we have done in the past, it's where we are going at now. So as far as the business, because I talked with them, they're going to stay in this city because they love this city here. And they just like Miss Brown and others that watch us and stay in that tower there to look at this city here. We don't want to hear any more about that. We don't want to hear any more about that. All of the corrective measures that have been put in place, we expect for this team and others to follow those procedures there, to help us continuously to have safe drinking water. This has been a problem that just not just existed, but it has two-folded now. No, every resident cannot remove their pipes, and I do not expect for them to do that. But I do expect that the things that we know to do in order to help them. So that was what I wanted to convey. And that lift station there on 8th Street and S Avenue, that's still open. So I would like to know, when are you all going to close that? Because it is a house there that sits right there on that corner there that's detrimental to that lift station. So I would like for that noted in the records so that somebody can, do what they have to do there, because that house there, and we've been complaining about that house. Hey, Madeline, you know this man is there right across from Shane Lincoln. They got a lot of stuff, the house there. So we also is asking for that house to be cleaned up. So we beyond that. We don't want to hear no more about it. We don't want to hear no more about this. We want the things that are done and the things that are being advocated, the things that are being put in place, and the business and the community say they want the plant built.
Yes, ma'am.
That is our goal.
Thank you. We're going to have to take one more question and we're going to get to compliance.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm just curious what happens with the wastewater, as the gentleman was talking about. When it is collected, what happens to that?
Once the wastewater is collected, we use a vac truck pretty much. We suck up the whole area. We drop it off to another lift station. If it has any kind of solids to it, we take it straight over to the ECR, the main treatment plant. And then the area is laid out with lime. That's our cleaning agent for any kind of sewer or anything like that. So we'll clean up the area, we'll put lime, and then we'll wash the area down. And we take up any kind of dirt that was affected.
So are we recycling any of that wastewater?
No, none of the wastewater is recycled. It's taken straight into ECR and it's treated over there.
Well, the ECR is the East Central Regional Water Reclamation Facility. It serves 5 municipalities, one of them being the city of River Beach. And they do recycle some of the water. Some of the water is used for irrigation on lawns. Also, it's taken to FPL's West Coast Regional Facility, and they use a lot of reclaimed water instead of drinking water for their evaporant for coolers and the boilers and such.
Okay, thank you. Let us go to the next section, which is compliance. Mr. Berry will give us a brief overview of compliance. Mr. Berry?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Margie DeBerry. I'm the compliance manager at the Utility Special District. I've been with the district for about a year now. And my background is I have about 15 years of experience working in the environmental field, primarily with water and wastewater, water resources. So the compliance division is primarily responsible for making sure the utility is in compliance with all of the federal, state, and local regulations. We primarily deal with a lot of reporting, but I'll get into specifics. We have to interpret the regulations. We sample and we test water and wastewater, or surface water that may have been affected by wastewater. Of course, we do the reporting. We issue the public notices that you guys have seen over this past year. We handle any concerns that you would have about your water, or even if you have a wastewater concern and you call us, we would be the people that come out to take a look and see what the issue is. And then, of course, we try to keep up with all of the documentation and record keeping for the utility. We work along with all of the other staff and the divisions within the utility, including the water plant, distribution, collections. So we work with each other as a team to make sure everything is in compliance and that we're addressing all of those concerns. We are the primary contacts that liaison with the regulatory agencies. So we work directly with EPA, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Florida Department of Health, and then even the environmental departments within Palm Beach County here. And then for any enforcement and policy matters, we would be managing those things as well. So next slide, thank you. So I'll just kind of go briefly through each of these items. Of course, interpreting and applying regulations, we work on all of the policies and procedures and provide guidance to administration so that we make sure we implement the regulations that we have to follow. We're working currently right now in developing SOPs for the utility district that may have been lacking. For protocols and sampling protocols and testing, We're responsible for all of the monitoring of the water in the distribution system, at our wells. We monitor those on a regular basis every month. So we're consistently, we're constantly monitoring your water quality. We prepare samples to take to certified laboratories for analysis, and the testing also includes testing our city-owned backflow devices. We have a number of backflow prevention devices that prevent any type of cross connection incidents, so we don't want anything getting back into the system. So for example, someone might be doing something like applying some pesticides or something, at their resident, and they maybe hook something up. That's what those devices are for, to prevent any contaminants from getting back into the distribution system. Next slide. So moving on to reporting, anything that is dealing with the Safe Drinking Water Act, we report on that. So there's a number of different rules. I'm not gonna go through each one, but some of the main ones that you may have heard about are the total coliform rule, of course lead and copper, where we're looking at your taps and checking to see if there's lead or copper in there, and then the new PFAS rules, those forever chemicals that have been in the media that everybody's talking about. That's a brand new rule that was published this year by EPA. So, we are doing initial monitoring now for PFAS. Another rule is the Consumer Confidence Report, also known as the Annual Water Quality Report. So that's another one where we summarize what we've done all year and we put it into a report. The report's currently on the website, and you can even look at reports from previous years. But there's some copies on the table over there. If you like a hard copy, you can definitely pick up a copy for yourself and have that. And that's for our most recent reporting year, 2023. We also report on sanitary sewer overflows. So anytime there's a spill, we have to report that to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. If it's a spill that exceeds 1,000 gallons, we also report it to the State Watch Office. So, we're in constant communication with the regulatory agencies on these spills, and we give updates on, handling the spill, cleaning it up, and everything like that, and any corrective actions. The EPCRA, it's the I guess I kind of forgot the acronym, but it's Community Right to Know Act, Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know. It basically deals with the chemicals that we have on site. If we have certain types of hazardous chemicals in large quantities, the emergency management agencies have to know about it, because if there's an emergency, they have to know where those things are so they can know how to, address that incident. Petroleum storage tanks, we have a number of tanks, mostly at our lift stations, but we have to make sure those tanks don't leak into the groundwater, so we have to keep those in compliance. And then there's also our cross-connection control program that I mentioned earlier, where we are making sure that our customers who are required to have certain types of backflows get them tested every year or every other year. If you're a residential customer and you have to have a backflow, it's every other year. If you're a commercial customer, it's generally every year. But you have to have those backflow devices tested, and then, of course, we're testing them throughout the city on the utility side. And then, of course, we issue public notices. We issue the public notices that you got this past year, and then also the boil water notices. And customer concerns I mentioned, we would come out to your home to grab a sample and take it back to our process laboratory at the water plant to test and, provide a report back to you on those different parameters that we test for. We may have to do corrective actions at times depending on what your issue is. So if you ever see us out there and we're flushing a hydrant, it may be for water quality, just to clear up any sediments, because there's sediment in the distribution system. So a lot of times all it takes is opening up a hydrant, getting that water moving, usually in areas where there's low demand or low use of water, we may have to do that. And then also for our, like I mentioned before, we keep up with documentation and record keeping. So we're trying to improve on that and just make sure we keep up all of the records based on the regulatory requirements. They actually have specific requirements based on the type of record, and you have to retain those records for a certain amount of time. So we also handle that. And that's compliance. Yes.
Thank you for the good work you do. Keep us safe every day. And while Ms. Graham never wants to hear the word E. coli again, I do have a question, because I sympathize. Other than the time when the well was E. coli detected in that well and it was shut down immediately, and there was E. coli detected in the Caribbean out that way, and it was never, a second test was never done, so we don't know if that was positive or not. Has there ever been E. coli in the water in Riviera since then?
Since that date, in the distribution system, we've not had any E. coli samples since then. We've not detected any E. coli. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask a question. What was the substance that was running through the water on Avenue G and 20th Street about a week ago? Was the residents in that area notified, or it wasn't serious enough to be notified, or you were aware of that situation?
So the incident at Avenue G was a sewer spill. There's a force main over there, and Mr. Brown or Mr. Armstrong may want to add to this, but that's what happened. It was a spill. In terms of notification, there's not really a regulatory requirement for us to notify residents, but we are working on notification methods so that we can alert you guys, especially the residents in the area, of an incident that's going on. And then we also plan on putting notices on the website so the city can be informed.
So is that a yes or no answer? They was not notified, or is not the
Only the close residents were notified. Anyone that was affected, like, directly, that's who we notified. Like, we was right in someone's yard, and we had to work in his yard, so we notified him, and we notified the people across the street.
But you don't notify the whole
No, like,
the little neighborhood in that area because once it flows.
no, we didn't notify anyone at that point. Yeah.
Yes or no answer. So
Yeah.
no, you did not notify anybody.
No.
Okay. Thank you so much for your answer.
Well,
To add to that, we did notify the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and also Mr. Berry notified the State Watch Office in Tallahassee. And when it goes into that system in Tallahassee, they call it, they came up with this legislation of we have to issue like a notice of pollution, and they decided that when they put it in that system, it goes out to certain people. If you want to contact them to be added to the list, then you'll get an email. Like one of the things, if you put it in there, it'll go to the director of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection in this Southeast District branch office. She's on it, for example. If any of the councilmen or councilperson or the mayor wanted to be on it, they could let us know. We could take care of adding them on the list. But
yeah, you can actually, on the website, you can actually subscribe to receive the notifications to your email.
To elaborate a little more on this here with the E. coli, once you all did find E. coli in the water, you can scream to the rooftop that there's no more E. coli. When was the date effective that it was no more E. coli in the water?
Well, we've not detected any E. coli since that particular date in the distribution system.
It was June of 2023. It was like the first or second week of June.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It was around the first or second week of June.
Okay, but the time it was E. coli in the water, it had been in the water. When did, can I ask a question, please? I'm not here to be argumentative. I won't answer just like you all. We in this together. Okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I think I talked loud enough.
No, I'm just saying, just go ahead. Just ask your question.
Okay, so when the E. coli was found in the water in June of 23 or whenever it was, we elaborated so much on the E. coli being in the water after June the 23rd. also the residents not knowing. And I think that was the big effect in the whole ordeal, not knowing. That's why I'm asking him the hypothetical question that I asked you. And a lot of people don't know that you got the contact of agriculture in Tallahassee. Would it be feasible, being that that's in that little surrounding neighborhood, to let, I mean, we waste ink on everything else. Would it have been feasible for everybody in that surrounding community, or that's not your?
Yes, moving forward, I made some door hangers, just so we can let you all know. So we will put it on. We'll put it on your door.
Yeah, just like when you give us a letter about something going on with the water. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm asking. Now I think everybody in here could agree with you. You want to know than not to know.
Yeah, that's understandable. So
You understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
In the case,
No, of course not. We understand what you're asking. Yes, we understand what you're asking. You're asking the question, there was an E. coli test in June of 2023, and we wanted to know, since that time it was tested and the well was shut down, has there been any other incidences of E. coli? And they said no. But what the deal is that there was a misstep in notifying the public about that. And they had to notify the public through the health department, and that is something that the city is working on, the utilities department is working on in terms of notification. So we want to make sure that it is understood that that was a misstep, and that this is something that the city is working on and currently has rectified.
So I have a question. Now that we know that all the people standing up saying there's poop in the water, there's not poop in the water. All the people who say there's the yellow water makes it unsafe to drink, that's not true. I want to ask you all a question, and you don't have to say who, but you do have to say whether. Has anyone in Riviera Beach government, whether staff or council, ever asked you not to report something that was wrong? Has anyone ever asked you not to report? Because
Yes.
that's another rumor going around, that you're all not telling the truth.
Yes, there are instances. I already went to the OIG. I supplied them with all the evidence. I had a whole folder. I gave it to them. So there will be a report from the OIG that's going to be separate from the water.
Okay.
No.
No. Okay.
I think the question was, has any staff or council ever told you not to report?
Previous
Any
staff, yeah.
council?
Oh, no, no council.
Now, I did hear
Yes.
say that, did the E. coli go through the system or it was at the well?
Oh, this was all based off of sewer, because I was over sewer. It didn't have to do anything with the water plant.
So the E. coli did not go through our water system?
Oh, I
drinking?
can't answer that. I don't work at a water plant.
That was the question. Did the E. coli go through our water system? Yes or no? Mr. Compliance?
Well, there's not really an answer to that question because the samples, the confirmation samples that should have been taken at that time were not collected. We don't know, right? So usually when you have a sample that's where there's a presence of bacteria or E. coli, you have to go back out and collect confirmation or repeat samples, right, to see if that's a real, if you actually have a problem. Because that wasn't done at the time, we can't say yes or no. It's unknown.
And you know what? Let me say this. This is akin to if you are stopped and they say they're stopping you for DUI. You're not drunk, but you refuse to take the test. They're going to assume that you're drunk and you're going to jail. But you're not drunk. But if you refuse that test, the same happened with this. If you take a test and you get a hit and you don't take the next test, they have to assume that it is true. So that was the misstep. 2, not reporting in a timely fashion and not telling the residents about it. 2 missteps. So those are the things that the city utility department is working and has fixed at this point because of the issues that came from that. You had something else to add to it?
Yeah,
Mr. Armstrong?
maybe I'd add to that. What happened was there was an E. coli positive sample in someone's home. We took a sample, not me, but excuse me, it was a sample station in Gramercy Park in unincorporated Palm Beach County in June of 2023. So if you get that, like Ms. Lanier said, we are required to contact the health department within 24 hours. That was not done. There was a compliance manager before Ms. DeBerry was here. He gave his resignation, and somewhere, maybe a week or somewhere after he gave his resignation, he didn't report it. He was supposed to report it to the health department within 24 hours, and then you coordinate on what to do and stuff like that. And also within 24 hours, because it is E. coli, you are to do a public notice precaution for the water, and that was not done. And so what the former compliance manager did was, if you have an E. coli, total coliform, fecal coliform, any positive sample, you're required to do a repeat sample within 24 hours of getting that report from the lab. If the lab gets it, they say, oh, you have this, they let us know right away. And not me, but I'm not in that division, but within 24 hours, you got to resample it, the same exact location. And then you're required to sample at 2 locations within 5 connections in that area's a residential neighborhood, within 5 houses on both sides, up gradient and down gradient. That was not what done. What he did was he called the lab and said, resample what they sampled in that area. There's like 42 compliance sample places in the district. Is it 42? 42 within the distribution system, and that day they did anywhere from 5 to 8 samples. And so he had them resample all those, and they all came back negative. The test at the same house came back negative. And one of them was on the west end of Gramercy Park, one was on the east end, so that one was up gradient, down gradient, but it was not within 5 houses. So if it came back and if they did it at the same location the following day, and 2 houses upstream and downstream, based on the revised total coliform rule, that would not be an E. coli violation. So he had them sample it in the area, but it wasn't within 5 houses. He had them sample the same location. So whether or not they would have came back positive, I don't know. So no one knows if E. coli, E. coli, one of the things reasons they revised the total coliform rule is because coliform bacteria, it's easy to cause a contamination. So if you didn't wash the samples, total coliform is everywhere. E. coli is not everywhere. It's within fecal matter, or it needs a warm-blooded host. So so they revised it to give you, because of a potential, if of the high potential. I don't want to diminish this, but because of the high potential of having contamination, they have you go back out in the revised total coliform rule to go back out, and if you don't have total coliform, fecal coliform, E. coli on the consecutive day at the same location and with the 5 homes upstream and downstream, then you pass. It's not a violation of E. coli, but it is a violation because that was not done, and we don't know what those samples would have been.
So
5 houses and downstream.
So the question that the violation came with the non-reporting. It wasn't the sample it was that you didn't report it. Yes. Well, and then too, to the health department.
It is also the proper sampling wasn't done, and we don't know what occurred 5 houses and downstream. So it is a violation. And if I add to that, maybe related to the other gentleman's question, since I've been here 5.5 years, we had like 8 directors since I've been here, and so my responsibilities changed. At one point, I got involved in we had a consent order before I was here, and we getting those issues resolved. So I had some communication with the health department in the past. So it was over 2.5 years ago. So in August of 2023, I was copied on an email that was sent to a former director, and it was about a warning letter. They sent a warning letter. You have a certain amount of time to respond to them. They put in bold print, and he wasn't responding to that. And they were say we're calling you and all this stuff. They copied me on it. I think because of, I don't know, but they copied me on it. Maybe they were trying to get some kind of response. And so we ended up having a meeting with the health department. I went. I'm not in that section, but I was invited. And the meeting didn't go very well, but I'm going to elaborate. But after the meeting with the health department, at the end of the during the meeting, they said we didn't do the public notice. And 3 times they mentioned it, that we had to do it. Someone said, explain the situation. Do we still need to do it? They said yes. And then they explained it a little bit more. And they asked, do we still need to do the public notice? And they said yes. I mean, this was, you know, a long time after the E. coli samples. But and so at the end of the meeting, you know, when other people were talking, I said, we need to issue the public notice, and we need to issue it as soon as possible. And I brought that up several times after that meeting in that same month. And the public notice didn't go out to the following year. So I'd like to say that because, you know, the health department said they're going to go after engineers.
So good evening. My question is along those lines. And thank you all for having this evening.
And
so
one thing, if I may, I apologize for interrupting, but I haven't told anyone. You know, the council doesn't know that. City manager's office doesn't know it. So,
well,
you know.
my question is pertaining to, because to me communication is everything. So I will leave the said municipality that I am employed by out of this, and I'm simply here as a resident of Riviera Beach. With the health department's reports, has there been a status update on those issues at this time? That's my question. And then my recommendation is, with the infrastructure bills from a federal and state level, when we're building a new water plant, we will have to have the infrastructure to have new pipes. And so there are federal and state dollars available in order for that to happen. I do not want to see us make an investment of $300 million, and then we don't have the infrastructure to support that. So I appreciate what you all are doing. I appreciate this environment for us to speak candidly, but I would like a status update on the health report findings.
So on the incidents that occurred last year in June, those incidents have been resolved. That case has been closed with a consent order. So that's been put to rest. There's been new enforcement recently as of July, and those matters are still under investigation now and have not been closed. So.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Did that answer your question? Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yes, I just want to clarify something and just put this to rest. As you said, the spill that was at the sewer spill on Avenue G and 20th, some neighbors were notified. It was notification verbally. Now, it is good that the suggestion that you are going to start putting hangers on the doors, but as you said, there were neighbors notified, and I was one of them verbally, and I thank you so much.
Okay, I have a couple questions. So, one, are we still under investigation by the health department? That's one, for those specific instances back in 2023.
No, those matters from 2023 have been closed. They've been resolved.
So do we have any pending investigations or running fines with the health department right now?
Yes.
And what are those?
Are you asking about the violations specifically, or?
Sure.
So there have been two communications from the health department in the form of warning letters with a number of violations. The first warning letter we provided a public notice to the community at the end of August. It was an 8-page letter that was mailed out to residents. It should also be posted on the city's website, and it described those matters from one of the warning letters.
Okay.
Actually, both of them. It described matters from both, but
Okay, and then
it's still under investigation now.
okay, and then jumping back to Mr. Armstrong, you mentioned that this is something you had provided to the council, the manager. What exactly are you speaking of, and what meeting was this, and who was in this meeting, and why are you just saying this now, given everything that's gone on? Just curious.
Well, there were violations in June of 2023.
Okay.
There was a warning letter issued by the Florida Department of Health excuse me, it was June of 2023.
I got that.
There was E. coli in the water distribution system in Gramercy Park,
Can
one
we
of the 42
jump to
samples.
the meeting that
Okay.
you had
Anyways,
at the health
the
department?
in August, we had a meeting, ended up having a meeting early, like I think it was the first week of September 2023.
Okay. Now you felt comfortable sharing this, so I just want to know now, who was in that meeting? At the
Well, it was
health
former,
department?
it was management and
Okay, you got to.
some former employees.
And who were those individuals?
Well, I'm not gonna say.
I mean, you felt comfortable sharing that with us, but you didn't. You won't provide any context. That provides. I mean, the media's here. We don't know who you're talking about and innuendos that could be made. Now, I'm not saying this isn't me targeting you or anything. I'm just curious. Now, you've opened up this can of worms, and are these employees that were in that meeting? Are they still here?
I believe the Inspector General has not contacted me.
Okay,
I believe they will.
Mayor, before I just want to
And,
get. Okay, sure.
Yes, sir.
So I have a question, Mayor. Yeah. But Mayor, that's like your friend texting you at work and saying, "Girl, I got to tell you something," and then immediately say, "Well, I'll tell you after we get off work." I need to know now what's going on.
Miss Jacobs, hold on one second. Hold on. We're gonna get to the bottom of this now. That's the reason why we had this meeting. We had this meeting so you could get all of the questions that you had. All the questions that you had that you wanted to get answered. That's why we had this meeting. So just hold on. We'll get to you.
So I want to say something. I've never heard what Mr. Armstrong is speaking of either. This is the first that I've heard it. He exclaimed that nobody else had heard it, the council or city administration. So
The Office of Inspector General has not contacted me, so no, they have had no communication with me. Well, this has been bothering me for a long time. You see this on the news.
Well, obviously he's not feeling comfortable. It doesn't appear that he's feeling comfortable.
Let me say
It's
one
probably
thing.
something.
Let me give an example of one thing. Let me just say one thing. We have the Channel 5 mic right in front of me. In the news, one of the things that they've done.
Come on, people. Come on. Let's go now. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get all of these answers, questions answered. And I know that this is a very contentious issue because it is our water. So let us get to Mr. Armstrong. You gather yourself, and we'll come back to that. And no. Okay, let's just.
Hold on. Let me just say this. Let me say this. I was in a class for 2 hours, and they did this presentation. I'm a citizen too, and I care about this water. I don't think it's fair to him because everyone has a right to legal counsel. He could be saying something that could get himself in trouble, and he could have listened because you know what? They're admitting to mistakes, and he could be making one right now. But listen, what I'm telling you is right now is that I think at the end of the day, the truth is going to come out. Nobody here wants to drink dirty water, right? But at the same time, he is a man that has to go home. He's a human being too, and he's having emotions. I think all of you could say that somehow you might feel horrible because this is what your job. That's why they're sitting up here to talk. Don't put him in that position. He cares enough to sit here. If you feel like you've done wrong and you're bold enough to face everyone, let's give him a chance to. And look, they're here to stand by him, his co-workers. And I don't think they're going to defend him if he misspoke and if he's done something wrong. Yes, but his bosses are here, and you have to have some faith, just like how they organize this for us. They will resolve whatever issues going on. It's fair to him, and they're trying to give information. I wasn't targeting
Can I say something real quick?
Just let it continue. Like,
Well, let's wrap. One more question. And okay, and then we'll go back to that. Listen, we're gonna move from that issue. Now we all understand that the gentleman said someone asked him if the people are still here. He said no. That's it for that. So we're gonna go to the next one because we're not gonna be here all night.
I have another thinking out of the box. I'm going to touch on what Miss Cindy said. Maybe perhaps two. You can hear me? I'm going to touch on something what Miss Cindy said on G Avenue. If everyone knows that when it is a spill, it is predicated only to those areas that have been affected. So as a totality of a city, it doesn't affect us. We won't get that. So this is what I am also suggesting, and I don't know whether you all are doing this, but those door knockers are more effective than a piece of paper. A piece of paper blows away. So our code enforcement has those door knockers when they come back and give us those citations, they write on there. So I am suggesting too that you all keep a stockpile of door knockers, and you can write on there, and you can go where those affected areas at. And even if you put it on 2 or 4 doors within that neighborhood, trust me, words travel like lies travel. So in those areas, we'll know right there then that within those areas that it is a spill. So that was one thing that I want to say. And another thing I want to say too, because it was made mention about the reports. Now I know if Miss Brown got it, a lot of the residents in the city got it too, because it came in our water bill, and it came from the city manager, and he outlined everything that was, am I lying? Everything that was pertaining to the violations. So it is nobody that pays a water bill. If you do not own a property and your water bill is not in your name, no, you do not get that. Because newsletters only comes out to the owners of the properties, and if you don't have a connection of paying a water bill, and then you fly off at the mouth, well, that's because that your water bill is not in your name. And whoever named that water bill in, they receive all the information. See, you residents, you have to be educated. Because I hear it so much when I'm out in the public. I didn't get this, and I didn't get that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have, hold on, okay, get 1 second. We got about 10 minutes, and we got to get to U.S. Water, and we're going to end this at 7:30 because we have other meetings that we're going to do in this series. So we're going to have one more question here. Go ahead.
I want to ask, when the email was sent out to the prospective person about the E. coli being in the water, who was that email sent to? That way they can let everybody else know. Somebody know who got that email. Who was responsible for getting that email? And this is the reason why the person said that he quit, because he didn't want to throw nobody up under the bus. If we're going to be honest, let's all be honest together, because we're in this together. We want clean water. And the second phase is, is it true that if our water be yellow, it's good to drink, or should we boil the water? Because we still having that problem. You know, I think I'm asking the board, this is a decent meeting,
Yes.
and I'm not going to be rude about it.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so we had said earlier that if the water is yellow, it is safe to drink. It is just an aesthetic. It is just how it looks. It is safe to drink. The water has not had an E. coli hit since June of 2023. There is no E. coli in the city's water. The water is safe to drink right now and has been safe since July of 2023. So let's be clear on that part. So we got one more presentation from U.S. Water, who's come here to help us to get it together. Now we have about 10 minutes, and we're going to wrap this up, and we'll be back at the next meeting. Mr. U.S. Water.
Thank you for having me. Councilwoman, I don't have a presentation, but I am here to answer questions and to also present my credentials and the companies. My name is Mike Miller. I have been in the water industry since 2001. I am a former Air Force Intel officer for 9 years, after which I got my degrees in my bachelor's in microbiology, followed by environmental engineering degree, master's, and then sustainability engineering, 2-year certification. I have worked in compliance for the county of Seminole County. I started their compliance office back in 2002, 2003. So I do have an extensive background in this particular area, and from that particular point, we're here as far as U.S. Water to look at the operational and the maintenance side of it. And yes, just like with any other system, there are issues where you have to deal with the maintenance. I will admit that we do have a lot of work to do with regards to maintenance, as well as the distribution system, as far as the making sure that we have access to water and be able to actually manage during the if anything happens with, let's say, a high service pump or a well goes down. But we are independent contractors, separate from the city, and I have some experience here because I was part of the team that did the level 2 assessment in 2016, and I personally asked to come back because I wanted to finish what we started.
Thank you. Very good. This is U.S. Water, which means they're independent of the city and the council and anyone that got to do with the city. So we want to make sure that I brought someone here that is independent of us to make sure that, you know, we're going to tell the truth. So with that being said, we're going to conclude this session. We have a second session next month. It's going to be on compliance. It's going to be on violations. We're going to figure out what is going on. And that's our show, folks. Have a good evening. And there is some refreshments out front. There's some refreshments out front that you can eat or take home with you. You're welcome to it. No, I think, no, they take it.
John told me not to talk.